Looks like we are.
Looks like we're live. Continue to YouTube. I always like to do a little check to make sure that it's definitely our faces are up on the YouTube.
I like your espresso cup.
Yeah, it's nice, right?
It's like a Hobbit cup or something.
Yeah, yeah, I like the little, and it's got that finish on it.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah, it's very nice. Well, yeah, I'm not doing these little intros. I used to do a little preamble and then I'd have, the guest waiting in the wings and I do a big introduction. We're just diving right in. But
Yeah, we're here.
yeah, yeah. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Last Things live stream with Hannah Barnes. Um, yes, we're both drinking coffee, getting caffed up, and we've never talked before. I only know Hannah from Twitter. I don't even know how we mutualed.
I don't even know. I don't know
Yeah,
if like half the people that I talk with on Twitter. It's just like they kind of appear these days.
yeah, totally. I mean, I think we liked the same tweet or something like that. Like
Maybe
we
it was in the Great Schoenberg Wars or something. I don't know.
Oh, the show. What were the Schoenberg Wars? We're getting right into it.
Oh, we'll get there.
We're there because I like classical music. Twitter is like, I don't know. It's I overlap with it enough that I see it, but like I'm removed enough that like the beefs, like I never see the original thing that's being debated. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
yeah. I think it's probably better that way. If you're
yeah.
like in too deep, then it's like, wow, another Saturday where I'm having to defend atonality. Great.
Is that the vibe? People
Yeah. Okay. So the first Schoenberg, or I don't know. I mean, we're like Schoenberg War like 6 or something now, and I'm like, it's 2022. Are we really doing this? But in July, and I'd like to add that this was while I was camp counseling, so I was in charge of teenagers and like
oh,
checking Twitter on my break, and I see a tweet that's like, I don't remember exactly how it was worded, but it was like basically saying 12 tone composition like ruined music.
yeah. I actually kind of
And
remember that sort of.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's just like, seriously, like, are we gonna do this? And then so like I made a tweet, and then all of a sudden I'm off Twitter for a couple hours doing the camp counselor thing. For
Hmm.
I forget about it, and then a friend texts me, Schoenberg is trending on Twitter, and your tweet has like 450 likes. I'm like, what did I do?
I bet that's what I saw. I bet you that's how I found you. Yeah, because I wanted to stick up for Schoenberg, um, and yeah, when I hear somebody say something like that, it's like I probably shouldn't jump to conclusions, but I have in my head all these reasons, like what I think their reasoning probably is, and why I think they're thinking that, and I'm like,
Oh
no,
yeah,
no, 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 no,
fight, fight.
but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and like, we don't see that in visual arts or in literature. Like no one is saying like, oh, Ulysses really ruined fiction writing in
I know.
2022, but like we're doing, and Ulysses was 100 years ago or whatever, and like people are getting really mad about music that's 110 years old.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, I noticed I've been saying this to people like, because okay, like I overlap, well, not just Twitter wise, but just life, work wise, sort of, like somewhat with the classical thing, somewhat with the sort of indie rockish,
Hmm,
whatever that was or is, and then also with metal a lot.
gotcha.
And I've noticed, and jazz somewhat, but I noticed, I mean, metal people and classical people like trash their own genre like so much. Like, like in metal, everyone's just like, I didn't even listen to death metal. I only listen to top 40. Like, I only listen to, you know what I mean? And classical, do, do you, aside from just Schoenberg hate, like, do you perceive what I perceive, like
Oh,
classical
totally.
people
Oh
hating
yeah.
classical
I
music?
mean, I mean, I think there's like the big like what is the classical world right now, and like the orchestral world. Like I will trash talk the orchestral world, especially in the US, all day. And like, I'm in Chicago, one of the top orchestras in the world is here. I just spent a ridiculous amount of money because the Berlin Phil is coming here in November, and I was like, well, I have to go to this.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I'm like, the CSO sucks. Like, they don't do anything interesting. There are these fantastic musicians who just like refuse to do anything that's remotely like boundary pushing. Like the most recent contemporary piece I heard the CSO play was a Philip Glass piece,
which is not really that. I mean, right?
No.
It's contemporary, but he's like a trillion years old. Like, I mean, it's
Yeah, and
yeah.
it's also like the most sanitized, new music out there. Um, and the only reason that I heard that piece was because Mitsuko Uchida was playing Beethoven's Fourth Concerto, and I was like, I would listen to anything else after that. And the minute that Glass piece started, I was like, oh, Muti actually knows how to conduct in five. Interesting.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like Philip Glass, but yeah, what that is about,
Yeah.
I don't like.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
where it
yeah,
fits in kind of relation to these things is like that's not it.
yeah, totally. Um, so okay, so let's give people a little background. I mean, because it'll be in the blurb.
Before it's just like one hot take after another.
Yeah, just like discourse machine gun, you know? Okay, so Hannah is a composer of orchestral works and chamber music. Yeah, I mean, obviously, just dive right in if I start misrepresenting. But yeah, prolific, young composer compared to me and some of the audience, possibly. It's not just old folks in this audience. I got the Zoomer hang a little bit, but yeah, and also an educator, right? You're a professor or a guest lecturer.
Yeah, lecturer.
Or
I'm
like...
an adjunct faculty, so my students call me professor. But yeah, lecturer. I teach first year theory. This is my second year doing it. So
nice.
at my alma mater, DePaul University.
Okay, right on. Yeah. Do you like teaching music theory?
I do. Yeah, it's great. It's hard. It's hard in like weird ways. And I wish I could teach them like everything.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would love to just like sit and play music for them and like talk about it. That would be awesome. But like teaching theory is great because I like seeing the light bulbs go off. And like last year I had a group this time last year I was teaching a group of students that were less experienced kind of in general. And so it was a lot of like, this is how we read, like this is how we, do these things and make sure we're all, is this a major third or a minor third, all of that. And this year I got a group of students that have some more experience, and it's cool to see them making connections because some of them, like, they have the kind of rote memorization, like they know their scales, they know their key signatures, and then I get to show them really how things fit together. Like we were talking about circle of fifths, and we went all the way through, I said, okay, what's a perfect fifth up from, C sharp major with 7 sharps? And they're like, oh, that would be G sharp. I'm like, yeah, what would the sharp in the key signature be? Oh, F double sharp. That doesn't exist, but it kind of does. And, and you can go all the way around and say, okay, let's get to B sharp major, which is enharmonically equivalent to C major. And congratulations, you just finished the circle of fifths. And literally a student was sitting there like,
Yeah. No,
it was awesome.
It's beautiful. No, that's that kind of thing. Yeah. It's funny because I was never like a huge math guy, but then when it came to studying actual music theory, I'm like, this is not only interesting, but is actually, really useful tool for actually writing, on some level.
Yeah.
So you're doing, like you're doing like intro harmony, like.
Yeah. Tonal theory, everything. We'll basically go through modulate. By the end of the year, they're doing modulations, 4-part writing with everything, augmented 6 chords, Neapolitan. We just took out sonata form from first year theory, which is kind of a bummer because I loved doing that last year. We spent like a couple of days on Beethoven 5. I was like, okay, what's weird? How does this work? How does this not work? What's weird about it?
Yeah. That's stuff I really missed, like with my sort of liberal arts, music education, where it's like tonal theory. I've got totally like at my disposal, species counterpoint but for sure. But then when it comes to like form and analysis,
that's the good stuff.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I like they're aware that I'm a composer, kind of like in this abstract sense. And I've only had 3 classes with this group. We just started like a week and a half ago. And so they don't really know what to do with me. I don't think any of them like know how old I am, which is cool. Like, good. Be a little scared of me, but also like I speak memes that you guys know.
Nice. Keep them guessing. And if they ask F, I mean, because that's just,
Exactly. Yeah, and I know I made it like an Among Us joke with my students last year. So and they're
Ooh,
like they don't know what to do with it. So
I
but like
think I might know.
they're like
Sorry.
aware that I'm a composer, but I don't think they know what that means.
Mm.
And I'll mention like, yeah, I don't write, we're doing tonal harmony and I don't write tonal music and like I just hear like kind of dial up sounds. They're
You
like,
hear
what is that?
Diala? Oh,
Sure. For them,
them,
yeah, they're
right?
like,
Yeah.
I don't think I know what that means. I'm like, good. We'll get there.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like atonal music, it's like the gateway to teaching a kid. It's like, this is horror movie stuff. Like, you ever see a horror
Yeah.
movie? Like, I mean, or at least that it
For
seems
better
to
or
be. Yeah.
worse, I think in some ways that makes it accessible, but at the same time, people just get stuck thinking, oh, this has this atmospheric effect because this is how I've heard it, and I don't know what to do with that in the context of this is music that I'm going to sit down and listen to.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. I mean,
that's
there's,
another can of worms.
yeah. I mean, there's like, right. I mean, how do you listen to this stuff? And then form is another thing. People are just so not used to listen. I mean, people are listening to tonal harmony all day, but they're
Right,
not listening to sonata form all day,
right.
and they're definitely not listening to like whatever Luigi Nono was doing, or like it's like
More people should.
there's yeah, I know. I mean, will it changed my life? Might have ruined it, but in the good way.
That's a fine line.
It is. I know you got to just
Yeah.
keep ruining it.
Yeah, me encountering Fernie Ho's Unity capsule when I was, 19. It's like, wow, well, no going back after that one.
Nice. That piece I don't know for anyhow's time
Ooh.
capsule, but yeah, I was just talking about him. I just made a video that's like a little review slash analysis of that movie, The Piano Teacher.
Oh, you know what? I haven't seen that.
Brutal. I don't
Okay.
know. Yeah, if you're
Okay.
into like being disturbed, that's I don't know where your tastes in. Well, your music is disturbing, so I suppose, or it sounds like
Yeah.
someone who's not allergic to like violence or whatever. Um, the piano teacher is,
Cool.
well, it's not. It's I mean, it's about like horrific sadomasochism and classical music. Mostly Schubert.
There's
Um,
there's a lot of overlap there already.
they get the music right too. I mean,
Okay.
the discourse, how she talks about it, the issues, it's like nailed. So
Okay. All right.
yeah,
I'm gonna watch that.
yeah, highly recommend it. Um, but yeah, so all right, so maybe we'll start off. Like we've already started, haven't we? But like, what are you working on? Like, what's the most recent project, and what's the next one? Like, what's just like plug? Start with a little plug, and then we'll
Huh.
talk about what it is.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of kind of weird overlap of projects this year. Right now I am working like it's sitting on my piano. There's a book that's relevant over there. I'm working on a solo horn piece right now. I'm probably about 2 weeks from being done with that. For a friend who is a DePaul alum and is now doing their DMA at Florida State. And they're like a horn player that is becoming, one of my generation's players that can just like do anything. Like you ask them,
Yeah,
and it's like, yeah, okay, cool, I'll do that. Like they
yeah,
played Grise as an undergrad. They're doing all this stuff. I actually had written them a horn trio for their master's recital that was supposed to be in March 2020, but something came up and prevented that from being able to happen.
yeah,
Don't know what that was all about.
yeah, yeah. Exactly.
Weird,
That
weird.
stuff in the news, right? Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So that piece I ended up recording it with people in Chicago, but that piece never got performed. So then, kind of out of nowhere, whatever in like August or late July or something, Tar was like, "Hey, can you write me a solo piece for my DMA recital?" It's like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think this will come up more if we talk about collaboration, but like, I love having people that I can just like send stupid questions to and just like send scans of stuff. Like, I've been like, hey, Tar, I have a potentially stupid horn question for you. And then we FaceTime for 15 minutes between like their rehearsals and stuff. And it's like, yeah, this works or this doesn't work. So that's like spectacular. And I couldn't really ask for anything better. It's so much better than just like writing a piece and you don't know who's going to play it.
It's really insane that is even any kind of norm.
Yeah.
Like
I am really lucky that I have not had to do that pretty much at all since I hit really since actually I hit the beginning of my master's, which is
Yeah.
like really unusual.
Yeah, well, you have to write stuff that's so safe, maybe not aesthetically, but just playing wise. Like you
Yeah.
have to just
Yeah.
know that the person, and then because if yeah, because people you don't know, there's that like passive aggressive like, well, that's what you wrote on the page, so
Yeah,
if it doesn't, like, I
it's
hate
just
that
coming from a
shit.
place of insecurity, and
Right.
like it goes both ways, and yeah, I think that can lead to negative, interactions all around. And then the other like highly specific thing is I met this awesome vocalist. She is Ukrainian and she is based in Philadelphia and New York, and she leads a Ukrainian choir in New York. Asha Mislako, I think I said her last name right. And we met at the Summer Institute for Contemporary Performance Practice last summer. That was all on Zoom, and it was like a life changing 10 days, honestly. And
Wow.
she reached out this year and was like, hey, we should do a piece together. So I wrote her a piece for voice and electronics. It's like done, but we have to get together to work on the electronics part. And I'm in Chicago, she's in Philadelphia. So that's going to take some time. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like excited to put that all together and get that out there.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, see, like we should do a piece together. Even
Yeah.
that phrase, like that sentence, is
Yeah.
not like, because I've worked in the realm of like chamber music and even orchestral music, but it's like, to me, it's always been like this completely different working process, and where like the written word, when I think of classical, we can talk about what quote unquote classical music even is.
Yeah. Big
in
question.
in in my head, it's basically just like notation, which is, I mean, that's like a simple minded view, but like when I was like getting into just the idea of like writing for ensembles, like it was almost assumed in my head that like it has to just be done when you give it to the person, like
Right.
that's,
Yeah.
and if you, and part of being a skilled composer is that. And if you have to even ask questions, it's like embarrassing or something, which is
Right.
like,
Yeah. It's very that's very didactic. Right.
yeah,
Like
that's crazy. It's crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's the question of ownership and everything. I have thoughts. I have thoughts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that was what was always so compelling to me about like when I was younger, like just bands coming out of rock music, or at least just rock, I don't know, guitar based DIY
Sure.
band culture,
Yeah.
bands that would get into just hyper complex stuff, I mean, or if we're talking about, I was talking about metal, like death metal and prog tech
Math,
metal,
metal, and all of that.
yeah, mathy, like metal and shit. I mean, a lot of this music, it's the most hyper complex music, but it's collaboratively written by these bands that you don't even know the names of the people, like
Yeah.
the
That's a really good point. That's a really good point.
yeah, it's just like, so there's this weird, yeah, like just really aspirational, but without that composer, authorship, the ownership,
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't know, that's always an interesting game. But that's, yeah, the solo writing for solo pieces, that for solo instruments, that's such a different, maybe it's not different, how different is that for you?
It depends. I like honestly, I'm kind of joking right now that I'm in my solos and duos era
Okay.
because it's like I'm early career, my peers are early career, we're not at the point where we're working in, spaces with a lot of resources.
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean it's different. Like after the horn piece, I have a saxophone and clarinet duo to write and a cello and double bass duo to write, and then a clarinet solo. So it's like all kind of, I mean, I don't want to say they're smaller scale projects because I think that's kind of limiting. You could have a sprawling solo piece.
Yeah.
Look at No is a great example of that. But yeah, it's totally different than something like Triskelion, my big large ensemble piece that was my master's thesis. You are working on a completely different scale when it's something like 14 instruments,
Yeah.
and you're guaranteed rehearsal time, stuff like that. So I would rather do solo pieces with solos and duos with people who are totally on board. They're programming it, they're doing it as part of their recital, they're invested in it and all of that. I'd rather do that than some kind of like write something, send it off, people read it for a kind of crappy recording session.
Yeah, 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 totally. Yeah, I saw, or I also heard a really cool piece that you did with Kyle Bruckman, who I know from way back.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to
Really
yeah, I haven't talked to Kyle in a
cool.
really long time, and we've actually never worked together. But I booked when went to Wesleyan for undergrad, and
Yeah.
I went. What happened? He randomly hit me up to book a show at Wesleyan for his band Lozenge. That were kind of like
Nice.
a no wavy. He was like playing accordion and singing, but so he came
Of
to.
course, of course he was.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah,
That's like, yeah.
yeah,
He actually popped up on my Instagram yesterday because his reed quintet, Splinter Reeds, is in. They're off doing concerts, and I was like looking through some Instagram stories, and it's like all of a sudden there's Kyle, fiddling with one of his synths. I was like, okay, of course he is.
yeah. No, he's really brilliant in like all these ways. He's a ripping oboe player. Like if he
Oh,
did just that, he would like already be a bad motherfucker, right? Yeah,
oh
it's
yeah,
like
oh yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so like yeah, that was exciting to see. And that piece is really cool too. I mean, I was
It's
the
funny
thing
that
that
piece is like 3 years old now, which is just like really funny to me.
right, well when you're young, that's like a big chunk of your
Yeah,
life. Like, you know what I
exactly.
mean? Like
Yeah.
3 years is like a nap for me. But yeah, that thing about solo pieces though, it's interesting because I'm like the first thing I clicked on your SoundCloud is the first piece on there, Triskelion, and it's like yeah, so it's like large ensemble, and you're dealing with these like thick clouds of sound or textures. A thick cloud, man, that's an oxymoron. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I think that oxymoron is part of it though.
I think okay, yes, it can be thick, but also diaphanous, But yeah, like I mean, and I love Grisey and the spectral thing. I also would like at some point, not literally after the sentence, but like at some point, have you hip the listeners to spectral music, because it's like one of those things that like I'll drop in here and there, but I'd like to
The
get
isms, right?
yeah, the isms, but I'd like to get the thoughts of someone who is like operating more specific, like with
Yeah,
those techniques a
yeah,
lot.
totally.
But what was I gonna say? Yeah, I'm always interested in like people who are spectral, people who are working with spectral stuff in the large ensemble situations. It's like I know what that. I can hear how someone's thinking,
Yeah.
I can hear
Yep.
how someone's dealing with the overtone series, etc. But with like solo stuff, I'm always like, is this just a whole other mindset, or is it like in some ways, dealing? Because like, all right, I'm going a million directions, but you'll
Then we get to pick. Then I get to pick
then you get to
which
pick, right?
ones
Yeah,
to
yeah.
follow, right?
Yeah. Well, when I'm getting to know a composer's music, I'm always thinking like, how unified is their whole like vision of like, because it's like when you read a composer's like artist statement, there's always supposed to be this vibe of like, this is what I'm about,
Ooh, the
but
program note question.
yeah, but like in reality, we all know people aren't really usually that like doing the exact same approach on everything. So I'm
Right.
like, is she like on her solo stuff? Is she just coming with the exact same psychology as the large ensemble stuff, but somehow applying it to a solo instrument, or are you just on some different shit? Like this is now I just do solo stuff.
I like scale. I said this. I said this a couple minutes ago, but like I think scale is an interesting question because working like something with Triskelion, there's so much, like, this is a stupid way to say it, but there's like so much harmony in that piece, right? A 14 or a 13 note chord, like that has
Yeah,
to like a shit ton of harmony, right?
vertical as
So
hell. Yeah.
yeah, so in solo land it really is, I think more about horizontal, like, okay, I don't like, harmony equals the vertical, melody equals the horizontal. No, listen to any Bach solo piece and tell me that there's not harmony happening on
Of
the
course.
horizontal.
Of course.
Right. So it's the same principle. I mean, everything that I'm doing, Bach did better in the 1700s. Kidding, but no, but really he did. But it's really more about how harmony changes over time. I can have blocks, like I have sketches right over here on my pin board in front of me, where I'm determining what intervals, what registral bands are happening for any length of time. So
Okay.
I'm really, it's really kind of working like interlocking Legos of harmony of, this is this phrase all occupies within the span of a minor third, this phrase in the span of a tritone, this phrase in the span of an octave plus a tritone, stuff like that.
Interesting.
And the harmony is created out of time, basically.
Yeah, harmonic rhythm
Yep.
is something that, it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't get talked about a ton, I guess.
No, it doesn't. No,
Yeah.
it doesn't. And I think when there are boring pieces, it's because they're not thinking about harmonic rhythm.
Yeah. Bach was thinking about doing it.
Yeah,
like,
Bach was doing harmonic rhythm. Grise was doing harmonic rhythm.
Yeah.
Talea is a perfect example of that, because there's this unfolding that, is occurring over the span of the first half of that piece. That's what is that? Is it a quintet?
You said Talea is the piece?
Yeah. I always mix up if that's the quintet or if it's a sextet. I think it's the quintet because Vortex Temporum is the sextet.
Vortex Temporum, I know.
Talea,
yeah. I don't remember.
I have things to say about that piece. Yeah, but Talea, there's the whole, Vortex Temporum does it too. There's the unfolding over the span of that first big section, and that's occupying different places because it's expanding over the course of the harmonic series, and then you get the big C major harmonic thing, and then your harmony totally changes on a formal level for that second half of that piece.
Yeah. I mean, this is the kind of thing, people do perceive this stuff, even if they're not, even if they don't know the nuts and bolts of what's going on, or even if they don't really know about classical music. These are perceptual. This isn't some kind of Xenakis generating some stochastic thing.
Oh,
you're
even
how
in
interesting.
You can hear it. It occurs very differently. But this is where that question, if I can get on a soapbox for a minute, that's where that question of accessibility really honestly pisses me off, because and composers are guilty of it and listeners are guilty of it, because I think if composers don't focus on the sound, then people aren't going to get in.
Yeah. Yes.
I like this comment. No clue what's going on right now, but I'm going to start telling everyone, shut the fuck up. You aren't talking about harmonic rhythm. Yeah, honestly, go for it. That's a good strategy.
Yeah. You're going to see, I want people to, we don't always address every comment, but the more the merrier. And
I didn't even see them at first. I had the private chat open and then I saw comments. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. Well, how about, what would be cool, actually? Let's play people a little bit of a piece of you. Just to get, did you have something you were, did you have one? Because I've got the SoundCloud ready to go.
Oh yeah, the SoundCloud. Triskelion would be great. You can do the beginning.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the beginning and the end, the last section of Triskelion.
Okay.
5 images. I want to talk about how that fits into the picture.
Okay, sweet. All right, let's just give them how much of Triskelion? Just
how about the first minute and a half?
Okay, cool. Let's.
Hi, Evelyn.
Yeah, Triskelion is This starts off.
It's loud.
This hits. This hits the ground running, I guess. Would be the expression. All right. Let's see. Yeah, people, tell me if this is not coming through here.
Awesome.
Right? Right, audience? See? I'm not I would never lead you astray with 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 the brilliance of the guests on the Last Things live stream. Yeah. Is there did you want to go to the end now or you want to talk about that a little
We can
bit?
wait on that. We can wait on that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, see, this is like when I heard this, I was like, this is not like alien to what I know. You know what I mean? I'm like, I know where you're coming from,
Yeah.
but I was also kind of like, for some reason, I was like, damn, I haven't heard a young composer who I check out doing anything like this. But see, maybe that's just because I don't have my finger on the pulse, exactly of like people are. I mean, are you like in the minority of making like thorny, thick, dense
Yeah.
clouds of stuff? You are. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I think I am. There have been I've had a really wide range of experiences. This was called Alien Music by a friend, and I have embraced that and say, yeah, I write alien music. I've seen. I don't know how to phrase this kind of delicately. I've seen a lot of people, I think, around my age not digging below the surface, for a lack of a better way of putting it, or maybe an intentional way of putting it. I think, I don't know. I also think a lot of like the just ubiquitous like triadic harmony is doing a lot of damage, if I may say.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I kind of like, okay, I don't have a problem with pop music. I really don't. I have a problem when people say that it's like oppressed or the minority, because it's not. It's actually it's the hegemony, right? The hegemonic music
Yes.
is not classical music. The hegemonic music is not atonal music. Holy crap, no. It's tonal music. It's pop music, and I think like if we just acknowledge that, we can kind of start to maybe have a larger conversation. But I think a lot of people in the States are just like not wanting to do that. Um,
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's a politics, I think I feel like when people like want, yeah, when people in the classical realm are allergic or whatever to atonal music, harsh music, alien, like what you said, I feel like there's this pretending like that's the hegemonic thing and acting like poptimism. I mean, it ruined like it ruined underground rock shit too. This sort of
that doesn't surprise me at all. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, just this sense that you're being a rebel by making like like cozy fireside, like NPR, like whatever music and stuff. It's like that's
Yeah, that's not punk. That's
it's
not punk.
it's not, but there's this what people think is elitist. It's weird. It's like with politics and stuff, like what people think the status
Really weird.
quo is, everyone has this different idea of the
Yeah.
status quo. So
Yeah.
it's like the idea that people in the world who are in power are like sitting around listening to like Schubert, like if only, right? Like
God, I
what I mean?
wish.
Like
I think the world would be so much better right now.
yeah, no, for sure. I mean,
I
yeah.
really do.
Well, like back when elites were like still like probably just complete like abusive monsters, but like at least had like a culture that was like some form of like class that was other than just like crass like whatever commercialism.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. Like, it really all comes from the post-war. Like, hey, the Nazis used Beethoven. Where do we go from here?
I know.
You know?
Yeah. Well, they also built the Volkswagen and were very into saving the environment. So what are we gonna like trash that too? I mean, I mean, it's like Beethoven is good.
Beethoven's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
like he wasn't
Yeah.
a Nazi.
I also think like the people get afraid of making music that like only for a small number of people. I think like there was a conversation on Twitter that I saw from someone was like, what does it mean if if the people going to our concerts are only practitioners? I'm like, that means they understand it more.
Yeah.
Why is that a bad thing? Okay. There is a musicologist who has written a lot about like pop, and the avant-garde, which is a very hazy term in 2022 anyway,
Indeed.
those things on like a very large binary, and like that avant-garde music fails because it doesn't reach a large number of people. And I'm like, no, I don't think at all. I don't think so at all. And I don't think
Yeah.
it's a bad thing if you're making music that stays within a relatively small space. Like, for a
Oh,
performer to tell me that they enjoy playing my music means way more to me than if I were to get however many thousand plays on something.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah. No, absolutely. I do think though, I do think that really thorny, aggressive classical music would be somewhat more popular, not in the sense of like, let's get a broad audience, but like just in the sense that like, harsh noise music, like harsh, like power electronics, and like I don't
Oh,
know, like
that's its own beast.
and
Yeah.
and like I mean, and like stuff I'm talking about, like death metal and like this kind of stuff. I mean, there's like actually, that's pretty inaccessible music, but more people do get into that stuff, I think, because of just like where it's culturally pushed. So
Yeah.
I think there is a thing where it's like people aren't just people are people. Who are we talking about? People are
Yeah.
different, but I mean, I think a lot of people do find the concert hall or whatever, the recital hall, to be somewhat alienating. I think it's awesome, but I think some people do have that confused thing where they're like, oh, is this hegemonic, like this is money, like so therefore it's in power. I don't know, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a whole thing. And I think also it gets there's a weird like conflation in the States that like all instrumental music is this, is falling under this broad thing. Like, I don't have any cultural capital compared to the CSO. I got nothing.
Yeah.
Like the CSO and all of that has all of that cultural capital. This is actually, I was involved with DePaul's contemporary ensemble which is the ensemble that played Triskelion. I was in the ensemble during pandemic quarters when we were just zooming and stuff, and it kind of became a seminar on composers, music, and like politics of music and all of this. And we talked a lot about cultural capital and like this kind of academic. I don't like academic as a descriptor for this. Like,
Okay.
that's I understand where it comes from, but I think like people say it with so much derision. But like this kind of academic instrumental music has no cultural capital, and people think that it does.
Right. Yeah.
And then that's where the whole like accusing me of being elitist thing comes from. It's like, well, if I were elitist, that would mean that I have some kind of control or some kind of power, and I don't.
Right. Right.
I got nothing.
Yeah. No, totally. Yeah. Are you? I mean, yeah. I feel like the Adorno-ish perspective is not like in style. It's like not in style nowadays, right? Am I wrong about that?
I don't think so. I think that was kind of left in the 70s.
Yeah. I mean, because the thing is, like, I mean, I love pop music. I make music that is largely, I mean, more in pop and rock idioms than in stuff coming out of quote unquote classical music. I'm more like importing elements from
Sure.
so but I mean, to me, what I love about quote unquote classical music is that it's this arcane, weird thing. Like, you know what I mean? Because
Totally.
I love weird, challenging music from other coming from other cultural avenues, but that's the thing. It's like I don't know, even classical music though that's not hard to listen to is still non-hegemonic, like
Yep.
right? I
Oh yeah.
mean,
Oh yeah.
it's like, I mean, yeah, like Beethoven is cult underground stuff at this point.
It's so hip to hate on Beethoven right now.
Yeah.
It's so hip. Like, nobody likes Beethoven right now. I'm like, what is your problem?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's, yeah,
Rough
little
out there.
kids. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, I've never taught on the college level, but I mean, I've done a lot of teaching with like little kids, like after school programs and this
Nice.
kind of thing. General music teacher at a Catholic school I did for a while. And yeah, so movies are the only way I can get them to like
Yep.
even understand what these instruments sound like, but even there, it's sort of become less. It's become like the music in movies, even if it does use orchestral instruments, it's become so like minimal, like atmospheric, just vibe, like it's less melodic or
We have
whatever.
Hans Zimmer to blame for so much of that.
Yeah.
Evelyn, waiting for Evelyn to comment in 3, 2, 1.
I remember the first time I saw Zimmer by the last name listed, like as a composer. You know what I'm saying? Like
Oh
that was
no, yeah.
like, I was like, nah, man, that's a two-name guy who's not really a composer. Like, you can't, like,
No,
it's like Bach,
no.
Beethoven, Zimmer. I was just like,
God.
just
Ugh.
fallen.
Ugh.
But nice, yeah. Evelyn's feelings of
Yep.
polemics.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I think I don't know. I think film music is an avenue. It's a way in for a lot of people. And I think so many people, young people especially, don't ever see beyond that. It's like, okay, instrumental music equals film music.
yeah,
And then you're never going to be thinking about form. You're never going to be thinking about,
indeed.
these other kind of large issues that I think are necessary for a composer to reckon with.
Form. Yeah. Okay. So that's another thing. When I think
Yeah.
about what is classical music, I think of notation, and then I think of form.
Yep.
It's funny just how people experience form, like what you can expect someone to perceive. Do you care if people perceive X, Y, Z? It's funny because to me, just different types of attention span. I always have found it more compelling, even like at first, when I was like first listening to any orchestral music, like in college. I've always found it easier to like deeply feel formal schemes of like Feldman, No, like Lockenmod, like stuff like
Oh, I love
that.
that you say that. I love that
But
you say
like,
that. That's awesome.
but like I can experience that. I can grip onto that more easily than like a sonata form. It's
That's really
like
interesting.
sonata form. Like I know what it is, so when I hear it, I'm like, oh right, that's that happening. But I'm not like responding to how the development. Whereas like when you're dealing with just insane, uneven, time warping, memory playing, Feldmanian.
That's so funny that you say Feldman is the first thing,
Yeah,
right?
no,
If we're
I
talking
know.
about large, like unstriated expanses of time.
Unstriated. Are you a
I,
Deleuze fan or
yeah. I
yeah.
haven't read as much as I need to. I need to like actually dig in and read. But Boulez, like I think Boulez also was using striated and
Oh, okay.
unstriated time in relation to music. Yeah, depending if there's pulse or not.
Oh, was that all he meant by that? Was
Yeah.
yeah. I read some of his stuff about that about yeah, just the stuff from the Orientations collection. That was a long time ago though. I haven't I should
Music
return to that.
lessons is available now, translated.
That's a bunch
It's
of
a huge, yeah.
of
It's
essays and stuff.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, striated smooth. Do you know Alex Minchak? You know him?
Yeah, I actually had watched part of his talk. Yeah, that he was talking about that with you.
Yeah, he's so crushing. But yeah, striated. Well, see, like this could be talking about form. This could be right. You were talking about time. All right. No, you first. Like time. Okay, time. Like, how are you dealing with time? Form.
Yeah.
You talked about non-linear time.
Yeah, the hard question, right? I mean, time is inseparable from memory. I think about this a lot. Like, I think there are some things that music is at a total disadvantage compared to other art form. Like, sometimes I get really jealous of filmmakers
Yeah, I
and
knew you were
of
gonna say it. Yeah.
novelists because it's like, damn, you guys can do flashbacks and you guys can do actual non-linear narratives. I've been in a couple young composer presentations where people are like, yeah, the first thing that happens is the B section, and then it's the A section, and it's so different. And I'm like, that's not how time works. I wish
What
it
is?
was. That would
Wait,
be great.
wait. How does that work? Wait, I don't get it. Wait, someone
Like,
said that.
so like a young composer is trying to have something that seems like out of order, right?
Right. Well, how
And
could
so
you
the
perceive
second
it
thing comes
as?
first. I'm like, that's not how time works. Whatever the
Right.
first thing in the piece is. is the
Right.
first thing that's in the piece.
Well, did they mean they want people to perceive it as the B section, or are
Yeah.
they just saying,
Yeah.
well, that's nuts. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, that's
how
like
could you do
not
that?
literally not how time works, you know.
Yeah,
It'd be
yeah.
it'd be more interesting if it was.
Yeah, I mean, Feldman had something where he cut the beginning and end off stuff,
Yeah. Oh
something
yeah.
like that, right? He like writes some stuff and then snip it.
Yeah.
That's not what we're talking about though. Yeah, I mean, playing with time. I mean, film wise, like I mean, David Lynch for sure.
Totally.
To me, does that, and that's part of the horror. To me, to me, to me, when film and music are scary, to me, what's scary is actually anything that's disrupting time. Anything that makes you feel time not in a linear sense, but
Mm-hmm.
time as it is, whatever that
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
is scary to me. There's a
Yeah.
vertigo. There's a vertigo there.
I also related to this. I think a lot about like zooming in and zooming out, both on like a musical, object or a musical like a zone of music. I've actually been thinking about this a lot. I'm currently obsessed with Rebecca Saunders' music.
Yeah. She's sick.
Yeah,
I did
yeah.
yeah, I did a little bit of masterclass stuff with her back in like 2005 at that the Ostrava New
Oh
Music
yeah,
Days
Strava
festival.
Days. Yeah.
I did that.
Oh,
Yeah, like in 2005, and she was there,
she's
and
so cool.
she's cool as hell. Her
She's
music's cool
so
as hell.
cool.
She was busting my chops a little. She said my music was at least at the time it was very cheeky and distinctly American. So
Interesting.
I was like, I appreciate that. That might have been a slight neg, but I'll take a neg from Rebecca Saunders. Anyway, sorry. Wait, we go
Yeah,
on with
I think
Rebecca.
she does a phenomenal job of adjusting and like forcing a listener to zoom in on a certain thing. Like there are these things that I think you have these moments when you listen to her music. It's like, how did we wind up here? Which is
Yeah,
also how I experience Feldman. The change in Feldman, the change happens so slowly that you're vibing for like 20 minutes, and then all of a sudden you like snap into the present. And it's like,
yeah,
how did I get here?
yeah.
You know,
But
and
yeah.
in Saunders, I think it's more like you're being maybe like a coffee filter is a good visual analogy. I don't know, like you're being, kind of forced into this space, and it's like now this bit of the texture or this, type of object is now the focus.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hear that in Lochinmon too, where there'll be
Oh, totally.
there'll be a bunch of elements, battling in each other sort of, and then there'll be like one peripheral one will like suddenly become the new main one.
Yeah,
Like that.
that's totally true. That's how he achieves harmonic rhythm, right? Because he's working with such noisy things.
Right. It's
Yeah.
like not harmony; they're more like sound objects, but you could consider that of a
Yeah,
harmonic
I
rhythm.
actually was thinking about Saunders and Lochinmon together. Like Saunders isn't doing the musique concrète instrumentale thing like at all. Like she's not doing Lochinmon's language, but I think the way that she conceives of sounds in series, for lack of a better way, is actually really similar.
Word. Okay, yeah. Just to fill folks in, when Hannah's talking about music concrete instrumental, basically talking about music for traditional classical instruments, but they don't use the instruments. They use the instruments as noise sound elements that are non-pitched. Would that kind of
Yeah,
is that about right?
and also with Lackaman, the method of sound generation is as important as the sounding result, right?
Okay.
And so actually part of my looking back, so I studied conducting during my master's, and I did a bunch of like insane, like if I tell people, hey, this is what I studied for conducting for 2 years, it sounds like absolutely insane. Because one of the projects I did was going through Lackaman's piece Mouvement, the big ensemble piece. It's like a 25-minute
It's
piece.
so good. That's
It's
that's
so
my favorite. That's my favorite Lackaman. It's unreal.
yeah,
Formally,
probably.
forget it. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a video of Ensemble Intercontemporain doing it that I highly recommend. And I went through that piece and I cataloged every single string technique
That's
in a
maniacal.
spreadsheet. It was insane. And I have like a shitty violin. Actually, it's not here anymore, but I have like a shitty violin that has like 2 strings. And I was like going through and basically figuring out how to do all of these things. And it's like, Is it muted or unmuted? Is it pitched or unpitched? Is it colenio? Are you using the wood of the bow, or are you playing the bow? Are you using the bow? Normally, that's a very relative term in Lochimon land, but doing that was like a really good way into how technique and sound are actually inseparable in Lochimon's music. And I think that goes the same for Saunders.
Okay. Yeah. This is by the way, people, we're talking about Helmut Lochenmann. So yeah,
Awesome
German. we're dealing with music that is very sound based and not note based, but there are notes in it, but they're treated more like sounds, right? Yeah, for sure. Also,
back to structure.
Yeah.
Okay. People get angry about this these days. I don't know where this came from. People get really mad. I've been called an authoritarian before.
I ain't mad. There's
like, yeah, I don't know. So I think of like when I'm composing, I need top down and down out, basically. Like I have a formal diagram sitting in front of me right now, and it has all of my durations and all my tempi calculated and all of that. And, there are proportions and all of that. And one thing that I'm always constantly aware of is, are they boxes, or like, are they containers, or are they like zones? And that might sound not that different. Boulez, I honestly, so I've been reading Boulez's music lessons since this past December. I'm almost done with it. And it literally feels like I've been in lessons with him for a year, from how much I've like learned from that book and just like things that I've been thinking about. And Boulez at one point is like, it's easy to make boxes for material, and then you just, put stuff in there and you have a box full of shit, basically. But, that's not the only way you can do it. You can have, tension and create tension between materials and the boxes that they're residing in. And I think that's really interesting. And I don't know where the like anti-structure thing is coming from, but I'm seeing it a lot in like my peers.
Well, this is okay. This is, I mean, not shocking, but a little surprising. So you actually, so when you're talking about top down, you actually like plan out formal schemes like boxes and durations that where you don't have the materials, you don't know what you're even going to fill it up with yet.
Correct. I might have a general idea. Hold on, it just totally fell on the floor because I'm going to grab it. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. Hang on.
Yeah, John says, please say more about top-down formal stuff.
Yeah, here's a formal diagram.
Sick. All right, I can sort of see that. You might want to go closer to the screen. Yeah.
This is like top secret stuff because this is a piece that's in progress. Yeah, so this is 7.5 minutes of music right here.
Okay, you got the timeline. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on. Okay. Yeah. And so, where do you get the sort of inspiration for just like these time containers ahead of time? Are you doing like Fibonacci series? I have a feeling.
That's like one of my defaults, really.
You do? Okay. Wow. All right.
I mean, like I think then you can get into the question of, do these numbers actually mean anything? And I think that reaction is like totally justified, and I think it's also in reaction to someone like Babbitt. And it's like, guys, we're like 70 years post, integral serialism. Can we like chill out? And the numbers don't mean anything if you don't make them mean something. So if a section of music is a minute, okay, or, a minute and 15 seconds, then I think it has to be put in relation to something. Is then the next section longer or shorter than that? That's what gives it meaning, not just some kind of arbitrary, number or something that's calculated.
Yeah. That's interesting to hear you say that, though, because for some reason I wouldn't have thought that you worked that way listening to your music. I don't know why. I guess because like if you're like dealing with messing with people's memory and sort of trying to subvert linear time. I don't know. For some reason, I would imagine that being from the middle out. Whatever. Ooh. I mean, talking about Deleuze. I don't know. Deleuze talks about starting in the middle, or something.
Well, starting in the middle means something very specific in Triskelion because. So okay, I'm actually wearing my Triskelion. I wear a little Triskelion every day now.
Oh, nice. What those are like? It's like a Celtic rune
Yeah,
or something,
yeah.
or a Celtic.
So yeah, so the starting piece. So I don't say my music is about anything other than the music. I think
Hell yeah.
when that's like the postmodern plague thing is like people are like, this piece is about a sunset. I'm like, bullshit. It's about what the piece sounds like. Like you could tell me it's about a park, and I would say no, it isn't. Whatever.
Right.
So
Right,
I'm not even going to open that can of worms because I could rant about that for a while.
I'm gonna open it later, but yeah, no, let's do this.
But the starting point for Triskelion was I'm an Irish person. Big Irish culture things. I was an Irish dancer for many years, which is another thing. But there's this tomb in the east of Ireland that's older than the Great Pyramids of Giza, and it was discovered, like, it was totally overgrown. It was discovered in the 1870s, back when people were like really hyped about that stuff. And it's kind of equivalent to Stonehenge in that, on the winter solstice, so in December, the light from the solstice goes inside this chamber and lights it up just once a year. Like, how did they do that?
Right.
Like, how did they do this? This is like Neolithic era. How did these people do this? And it's a tomb, so people are buried in there, and all around it there are these triple spiral etchings, right? So people associate the Trinity with Ireland. That's obviously a Christian symbol. This is way before that. And like, do you know Harrison Birtwhistle's music much?
I don't. I mean, I know the name. I had a CD years ago, but I think I found it boring or something. But
like, he's one of the British composers that I think is a little hit or miss. But like when he hit.
Yeah.
But he had this piece called Silbury Air, which in the south, I think it's the southwest of England, there's this big like chalk mound, and it's I think it's from Neolithic era as well. And it's one of those things where it has like cultural significance. It obviously meant something to the people who lived there.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have no idea what it means other than, some kind of cultural ritual significance. And I encountered that piece, and I knew about Newgrange from all my Ireland studies and everything. And I was like, wow, I have to write the piece, using Newgrange as the starting point. And it's a companion piece. It's a companion piece to Silbury Air. And that's what Triskelion was. So the piece is in 3 big sections, each is the spiral, and they start from the same place, which is that huge 13-note chord.
Mm-hmm.
And every time it spirals out somewhere different. And there's something kind of obsessive and ritualistic about it. And everything that happens in the middle they're all strange loops. So the hierarchies of the materials and the hierarchies of the voices change. And I don't mean to get too technical. Like I can talk about canons and everything, but that idea of spiraling out from the middle is actually something very literal in that piece.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not,
Sorry, that was probably like
no. That's awesome.
Much.
That's absolutely. It's not too much. Nothing's too much. Some things might be too much for me to like immediately have a snappy response.
I think that's part of like something that I actually aim for, though, is like when people say they listen to something a second time and find something more.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like kind of aspire to that.
Yeah. I mean, something that's noticeable to me, like on a not technical musical level, is just that you're dealing with like your heritage and stuff, which is something that I mean, so many people are kind of digging in their ancestry and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then so it's like but a lot of the time it's very like apparent.
Yeah, very literal. Yeah,
it's like very, very literal.
Yep.
Whereas what you're doing, it's directly inspired by something from your deep in your heritage. But ultimately, you said your music's not quote unquote about anything.
Yeah.
So
there's nothing on the surface that really relates to that, nor do I want there to be.
Yeah. I always find it weird. I've said this in other videos. Like, I always find it weird when people use the word abstract to refer to music that's just instrumental music or like, atonal music or something. Because to me, it's more abstract to have music that like refers to something else. Whereas like, to me, if you're just dealing with pure sound, that's like less abstract in a way. You know what I mean?
I think we need more people thinking like that, honestly, because I think some people see the abstractness as a barrier, as opposed to like really the way in.
Right. It's like actually easier to like do,
Yeah.
you know, if you're just like trained to like be like just what listen to this
Just
sound. Like,
listen.
yeah, just listen to it.
Listen.
You
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Yeah. People so to talk about Fernie Ho for a minute, people get like really mad and like really freaked out about Fernie Ho's music because of how it looks on the page.
Yeah.
And I'm like, listen to it. Like don't look at the score. Go listen to the second string quartet. Don't sweat what's on the page and just like sit back and listen.
Yeah.
You have to engage. You can't just like turn your brain off or you'll be like, well, that certainly was music. No, but if you,
That's like a snarky response to a tweet or whatever, you know. It's like having a normal one, are we? You know, to like for Fernie House entire like ooh, you know.
yeah.
Yeah,
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 but
yeah. Sorry,
if
no,
you
go ahead.
just listen, like don't sweat it, and just listen and you'll find it.
Yeah. To everyone, that's Brian Fernie. Wait, do you say Fernie Howe? Fernie who?
Fernie Ho, Fernie
Fer,
Ho,
Fernie Howe? Yeah, Fernie Howe.
Fernie Ho.
Yeah. Brian Fernie Howe. Yeah, super. Yeah, new complexity. The new complexity. It's not
People
new
and
anymore.
people misunderstand what complexity is.
Mm.
It is not number of notes on the page, right? I mean, because I see some people, young composers who are like, yeah, I like the complexity thing, and it's like a bunch of notes on the page. I'm like, okay, well, the thing that makes Brian's music complex is the fact that there are multiple parameters at work, right? There's like in something like Unity Capsule, there's the multiple strains of rhythm. Talk about messing with time. That music certainly
Mm.
does it. There are the syllables in a piece like Unity Capsule. There's the gestural component of it. It's all these things that are happening, and the performer is basically filtering through that. It's not just how many notes are on the page.
Right. But you would say the difficulty. I mean, maybe not the
Difficulty is
number of
part of it.
notes, but yeah. Like it's a big part of it is how complex,
Yes.
quote unquote, it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
they should
Oh
call it
yeah.
the new difficulty maybe instead of complexity. I don't know.
I
Yeah,
don't know. That might be even more off-putting.
yeah. Right. I was that's something I haven't uploaded it yet, but my little video about the piano teacher, the movie. It's I talk a little bit about Fernie Ho at the end, and just the somewhat perverse masochism or S&M elements of like what it means to tell someone to do something
There's a
with,
lot there.
you know what I mean, and the sort of the accepting the sort of pain of of just attempting to wrestle with
Yeah,
music that's like
but
so
people
hard
want
to
to
play.
do it, right? There are people who take that on and say, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna make my own kind of reading of this piece. Because you can listen to three different versions of something. I think there are like 3 or 4 recordings of the second time in motion study. No, wait, the first time in motion study, which is the bass clarinet one, and they sound really different
Yeah.
because that's just the process that goes into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's actually more totally blanking on the word. There's more chance in those pieces, indeterminacy in those pieces than I think anyone realizes. That is not the case in my music, at least at this point in time.
Yeah, right on. Yeah. It's funny. I like remembering back to that. I can't believe the Ostrava thing's coming up twice, but Kotick was like showing how he I know it's delightful to just even think of him, right? But he
Tell you
was
my Peter Kotick story in a minute.
all right, okay. He was well. Just this isn't even a crazy story, but it was just interesting to me. He was showing how they rehearsed some Feldman, and I couldn't believe how loose it was because that music is like not that crazy rhythmically. I mean, it's
Like,
just some fives against threes. They don't even really
yeah.
have sevens much or whatever. So but I was surprised at how floaty the interpretation was. It was
Mhm.
relieving to me. I was like, oh, I can do this.
They're not sitting there subdividing everything. I mean,
Yeah.
you're not doing that in front of you. You can't.
Right.
If you can hear that, I'm sorry. There are apparently some issues with my air conditioning unit in my apartment.
Oh, I mean, I barely hear it. I
Okay.
assume, I mean, you can hear dogs barking this entire time, right? I mean,
I heard
you,
him
you
earlier,
can,
not too much now.
it's brutal. Don't even get me started. It's like every live stream I complain about the dogs and then the neighbors and then the neighborhood and then Los Angeles. Let's not even, yeah. But, like, yeah, so right, so coming back to like your own work, right? You're just kind of, yeah, like you don't make music, you're saying, where like complexity is really a part, like for the performers, right? You know what you want it to sound like.
Yeah,
It's doable if you're a good player. You
yeah,
collaborate to
yeah.
get
It
ideas
might be,
going.
I'm going to ask you to practice.
Yeah, right. But it's not like, it's not like achieving the result by making someone sweat
Right.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, I haven't listened to Fernie Ho in a while. I bet I'm gonna go on a tear after this
Listen
with
to Liber Scintillarum.
okay. That
That
one I
piece
don't
is
know.
stunning.
The second string quartet I know, and I think I've heard some of his other string
Yeah.
quartets
2-6
maybe,
is
but
really good. What's Terrain? I love Terrain. That's
yes, Terrain. Yes,
the violin
know
concerto.
I know
Yeah.
that piece.
That piece is
That's great.
awesome.
That's crazy. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
bonkers. Are you into like? I mean, we could just go through like. Are you into this? Are you into that? Bayat Furrer. You ever get that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh.
This when I think about Saunders, I'm like thinking about all that stuff that was on
Oh yeah.
Kairos.
Oh
Like
that.
20 years
Yeah.
ago. Yeah, that whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did a big analysis on Spohr, the piano quintet, at the end of or actually the beginning of the first year of my master's, and I was like, gonna do it. I'm gonna turn into this like massive 40-page analytical paper and like 18 different colored pencils on the score, and I turned it in. And I was like, it's your problem now. Like, I'm done with it. Have fun looking at this.
It's your problem now.
Like
That
like
is.
like 60 hours later, I turned it in. I was like, nope, I'm done.
I love it. I love that. um, So yeah, I mean, there was like there's been like a bunch of things that we were going to talk about that maybe we have not
Collaboration
totally.
might be
Yeah,
an interesting one.
yeah. Just like how are you, yeah, we talked a little bit about how you worked with
Yeah, the
Kyle
horn player.
Bruckman and stuff, and with the horn player. I mean, how does that sort of go down? Because obviously, with your large ensemble pieces, it's a lot less collaborative because you
Yeah,
got like 20 people.
the large ensemble piece is like I write it.
Yeah,
I'm incredibly fortunate. So that was like I started that in April 2020, and and the whole time I was thinking of like, are people ever going to be able to play this? Sitting, an ensemble of 14 people plus a conductor for, and I knew it was going to be a long piece. I was like, wow, are people ever going to play this? Because right now it's a matter of life and death.
you mean
So
just resources wise? You mean
yeah,
just like just
yeah.
opportunities? Yeah.
So they did end up playing it this past spring. So after I had graduated, which was really very fortunate and very kind, and they did it on 3 rehearsals. It was like 4.5 hours of rehearsal, which was just like actually mind boggling. Yeah. So that, I mean, I don't really consider there being a lot of collaboration in that, which is fine. I think it's just the nature of the beast.
Oh, I'm interested. Wait, let me just ask. When you said
Yeah.
when you said it's mind-boggling that you got only 4.5 hours of rehearsal,
Oh, that they played it so well.
right? Good. Yeah. See, this is just so for people who are not so much on the classical tip. This is how the killers do it. Like 4.5 hours.
Yeah. Oh, and a student ensemble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
can actually kill this.
I was so proud. I presented this piece at the summer institute, the summer composition institute I went to, and people were like, "That was a student ensemble." I was like, "Yeah, we rock."
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the one of the other pieces that I shared with you, ramification, the percussion piece, that and a solo electric guitar piece I did, the vocal
Yeah.
piece that I talked about earlier, and the horn piece. Those have all been actually really collaborative in the sense of we do a lot of back and forth, especially at the beginning. I do a lot of workshopping with the performers, like so the percussion piece I shared, ramification, that was written for Summer Institute for Contemporary Performance Practice last summer, and written in like 3 weeks, which was scary. And so I was, kind of assigned. It was kind of like, speed dating, I guess. And it was like, here are your choices for instrumentation. Who do you want? And I was like, I would love to write a percussion piece.
Yeah.
And so I got paired with this percussionist, Alex Gard, who was at Rice University at the time. And lucky for me, I got the best performer of the entire festival, I think, because he's a monster. He's in the President's Own band now. He got the Marine band gig.
Oh, okay.
And
That's yeah.
yeah, oh yeah. And so the first time we zoomed, it was, what are you playing lately? What do you like to play? What are your favorite pieces in the rep? And then for percussion, I literally said, show me the weirdest things you have in this percussion studio.
Mm-hmm.
And we did, he had me, zoom in on his phone, and we were just going around the Rice percussion studio. And he was like, I have some flower pots, I have, these metal coils, I have a bunch of different, tuned wood, and here I have these bamboo chimes and these glass chimes.
Yeah.
And right away I knew that those were going in the piece, and I knew that the glass chimes, like, it was just kind of one of those things that clicked of like, I know the glass chimes are going to be the weird thing that happened at the end, and they're
Yeah.
sitting there,
Yeah.
they're literally sitting on stage for like 8 minutes before they're ever touched.
Yeah, yeah, that's so fun. Like
Oh, it's great.
to have an idea like that.
Yeah, they're Chekhov's glass chimes.
Yeah, like for some reason you're like that's at the end. Like it just
Yeah.
and it just you know it already. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should we play a little of that or
Yeah, that'd be great.
yeah. Let's just do a little ramification, right?
Yeah, you can do the beginning, or you could do. Yeah, why don't you do the beginning?
Yeah, let's just launch it here. Is that cool? I know that's
Yeah,
probably
yeah, I think that's
where
a good stopping
it's
point.
just
Yeah.
starting to get spicy though. But yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. Yeah. It's actually funny listening to that this time. I listened to it like before, but checking it out this time, I'm like, actually, it does sound like more consistent with your large ensemble stuff. I mean, it's like okay, that's like a voice like that. That's not like a totally different universe.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, and it's a totally interesting challenge, because when I was like, okay, I'm gonna write a solo percussion piece for this, I was like, I'm gonna do it unpitched. I don't want any, I don't need a vibraphone or anything in there. So I was
just sound and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's not there aren't like licks. I know that sounds like a weird like I mean, I know you're probably like, well, why would there be? But I don't know, at least so far in the piece, like I don't know, you're dealing with sound in a way that's not like I don't know, like do you think of that as gestures? Cuz like you
gestures,
do. Okay.
Gesture's always the big word. Yeah. Gesture on a small level, phrase on a larger level, and then I think a section can have a gesture, right? Like the piece is the piece is very sectional, and it's in how it's using parts of the setup, because the next thing that happens is the water gong thing, and but I think they're basically all comprised of gestures that are kind of strung together, and depending on how much continuity or not there is between them is what affects like the flow of things.
Yep, I feel it. So did you do the approach with the sort of the time containers like ahead of time?
I did, yeah. This let's see. This was less I had some moments where it was very much like not writing myself into a corner with some of it, and it's like, okay, there's too much happening here. I actually did revise it after the first premiere, 'cause the ending, like, there was too much of a decrescendo. It lost too much of its energy, and I changed it and kind of fixed that.
Mm.
Um, I did the time boxes for just kind of the large areas, and also one thing that I knew, this is one of those steal like an artist things, is there are spots where each part of the setup has something that goes on for too long. There's the really long Super Ball gesture, and but you don't actually perceive it as being really static because it's changing position on the head of the drum. And then there's the Guiro solo, or the really long crossfade between. There's a moment where the water gong, like the gong is being dipped in and out, and he's hitting the bamboo chimes, and there's kind of a crossfade. So at the end, it's just the water gong, and that's like a whole minute of music or something. And
Yeah.
then there's an entire minute of the Guiro solo that I stole this from Matthias Spallinger, actually.
Don't know this composer actually at
Oh, he's
all.
great.
Yeah.
If you like Four and Lachman, check him out. Yeah, the Guiro solo. It happens in a piece called Musica Impura, which I did a paper on, like right before I wrote this piece, and I was like, man, the long Guiro thing, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And going back to talking about like zooming in on a sound, the whole point of each of those long moments is to basically force a listener, force, there's some very like, authoritarian terminology or whatever, but I'm going to say it anyway, of forcing a listener into a space where your perspective changes. If you're listening to a Guiro for an entire minute, you're going to start to perceive minute changes between things
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you can't play it exactly the same way. So it's, how is this graininess different than the graininess that comes after it?
Yeah. 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 See, I am interested though in what you're saying with the authoritarian and the forcing,
Mhm.
because someone could say like invites the listener, encourages the list, but it's like but you say force, it does imply that people like need more than a gentle nudge in order to focus on a Guiro sound, which I totally agree. I mean, yeah, for sure.
See
But
previous comments about people don't know how to listen.
right, right, right.
You know,
I mean, but do people like? You said you get accused of being authoritarian.
yeah, I got.
Are you exaggerating a little, or is that like?
No,
I mean,
I actually got hate mail in my SoundCloud last November calling me a fascist, and I was like, that's interesting because this would be labeled degenerate music. Especially
yeah.
a woman writing this kind of music would be labeled degeneracy, right?
You don't have to do a whole lot to get called a fascist in 2022. I mean, let's just say that. But
Well,
like,
I think it goes a little easier the other way, but yeah.
right, right, yeah. But but so when they called you a fascist, do they mean like the aesthetic and vibe and this thing of like I'm
Mhm.
gonna quote unquote force somebody, or they? But you also said it's that you have been called authoritarian because you use a quote unquote top down. Well, I say quote unquote. I know what you mean, but maybe explain
Yeah. You
what
know what I
that
mean? Yeah, and
but maybe explain what that means. Like a top down approach.
well,
Why people think that that's fascist and what they're comparing it to, authoritarian compared to what do they
right,
want you to be
yeah.
doing?
The big question that I get a lot is like, where does the performer have agency? Like, this has been the buzzword that I have kept kind of running into over the past year and a half or so. And I think it's just a really unfair, and I think it's a kind of trying to be a gotcha question because it's not engaging with my music where it is. Um, like, I'm not writing music that says, "Hey, now you're going to improv," or now, like, now you can choose between these kinds of things. Like, that's
Hmm.
just not what my music is interested in doing. And
Yeah.
I don't really understand why some people can't meet me where I'm coming from, right?
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, well, you're talking about that's literally just notated classical music, though,
yeah,
right? I mean, that's like, I
yeah,
mean, that aspect is like
yeah.
not
That's the
really.
aspect that gets some people like kind of riled up.
So that's so and so this is very interesting to me. So
Yeah,
you're talking about some people, like are you talking about peers, composers your own age, or do you mean like
composer
professors
generally.
when you were studying, or
No, not my teachers, thank God. Composers generally a couple like around my age, generally a little older, a bit older than me.
okay, and
Yeah.
and and so they're largely doing stuff where there's improvisation
Yeah, some
and
kind of more open
choice.
things. And I want to say, and I want to tell them, well, you still have rules in your, you know, in your kind of more open land. Like there are rules in every kind of music, right? If you're improvising in a jazz context, you're not going to start, playing diatonic major scales,
Right.
super straight eighths or whatever. If you're in a swing context, if you're in Earl Brown, if you're doing December 1952, I think that's the right year. If you're doing that piece, you're not going to start,
Yeah, playing Coltrane stuff. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
exactly,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like there are rules, there are norms for all of these things,
They're
but
just understood.
they don't actually take that into consideration, and then it becomes a very all or nothing. Well, you're telling me what to do. Like, you're telling them what to do too.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just implicit. I just watched this documentary on Kenny G. Have you seen this? The listening to Kenny G.
No.
It's pretty interesting. But yeah, he like I don't know, his like teacher took him on his first professional gig when he was like 18 or something,
Okay.
and he was supposed to play some like big like there's some like solo break, and then he was supposed to play solo, and he just played like it was like some funk like fusion groove stuff, and he just
Mhm.
played one note the
Oh
entire time,
no.
like just, and the crowd erupted, but I was like, that's kind of some contemporary music shit, like to just be like,
Very.
I have a
That's
solo.
Chelsea. That's
Like,
Chelsea. Like
it's
the four
Chelsea, yeah,
pieces.
totally. I mean, aesthetically, but also just the psychology of being like, I have an open container of, I have a time
Right.
container to fill up. I
Yeah.
can do whatever I want, but it's not whatever I want. He's being perverse, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like he was
Yeah.
expected to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah. And that question of like performer agency, I also get kind of mad because like it seems like such an attempted gotcha question because like I work really closely with performers, right? And I'm not just writing a piece and slapping it down in front of them and say play it exactly like this, or the piece isn't right. No, like I with Alex, we're going back and forth on all sorts of things, and he's telling me like, yeah, this is more comfortable to do it like this, or I mean, he made the setup like that. I
yeah.
remember talking with him pretty early on, and I was like, do you need me to diagram? He's like, no, don't worry, you write everything, you tell me what you want in the setup and I'll figure out how to best arrange it. Like that's collaboration there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Um, well, so like I see this is interesting to me because I like as far as like I know it's like we don't want to just be all about like being haters on like stuff on like other trends, but I'm just interested like so this thing about the open like people your age or a little older doing because the classicals that we were like kind of like whatever gossiping shit talking like the people of my kind of like early 40s like generation, there's like a lot of that post minimalist
Mm,
sort of stuff that's like kind of coming out of post rock,
okay.
and
Oh, okay. That makes
you
that.
know what I
Yeah,
mean.
that makes sense. Like time wise.
Yeah, sort of like the Philip Glass thing, but then with the
Oh,
like the Godspeed You Black Emperor kind of
mm,
side of things, and the you know what I mean, like the like Mogwai meets like Philip Glass, this kind of thing, where it's just like diatonic, like it's just
oh
just
boy.
just nary a ficta note anywhere, like
Yeah.
just fucking
No accidentals.
just nothing. Yeah, I'm just like give
Ugh,
me something, please, but
yeah.
but people aren't doing younger people are not doing that. Is that like sort of done?
Yeah, I think so. I think
Yeah.
so. I think let's see. Definitely the diatonic thing still happens. Totally. Um, yeah, I think there's less minimalism. I think there's more. The postmodern thing is big. The borrowing thing, the very like ironic thing is big. I'm not into irony.
I am.
I'm like painfully earnest.
I mean, I'm into it day to day, but I mean, as far as like yeah, in
I'm into
art,
like ironic memes, right? Like those,
yeah,
like
yeah,
I
yeah,
can do that where that becomes its like kind of own language.
yeah. But no,
Like
no,
that's like all of my Twitter friends, like my friends I'm on Twitter with, we're just like sending each other these like just insane memes that like you have to know like 40 layers of things to
yeah. 20
understand.
20
Like
layers of irony.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like I like that, but then in art I'm like no, like I am like painfully earnest.
Totally. No, totally. Um, yeah, because I mean that's like the sort of thing of using popular idioms in a classical music context. I don't know. I have like all these different feelings about stuff because it's like when I hear or do music that's generally experienced as coming out of some kind of rock-ish, like this isn't classical music, like perspective,
Mhm.
and it imports or uses like some techniques from spectral music or some
Sure.
like atonality and stuff. That feels right to me and whole, you know? But
Mhm.
when it goes the other way, I don't, like, in theory have a problem with it going the other way, but it ends up the
But
result
in practice, the result, yeah.
in practice, and I think a lot of that stuff to me has to do with like instruments and like genre associations. Like when you take like a pits on a viola and you're doing like funky stuff with it, like it's like it's like bothers me, like, you know what I'm saying? I
Oh,
mean,
oh, it actually like deeply, like viscerally upsets me. Actually, yeah.
yes,
There's
no, me
definitely
too.
there's definitely like a lot of like famous right now. American. It's always American music. That's like I call it pop music with violins.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah,
I just think I also like. I know that means that I'm seeking something that's just fundamentally really different, but like I think that's music that doesn't ask any like hard questions.
right,
You
right.
can just sit there and be like, okay, that was that piece.
Right,
It doesn't
right.
actually invite me to actually, dig into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something then like I mean, maybe this is unfair to like bring Grise into it because Grise was just a monster, but then it's like I listen to Grise, whether it's Talea, Vortex Temporum, Contrechant, uh, uh, Solo per Duo, which I programmed in my last concert. Those are pieces where it's like you get it on like you get into that world on the first listen, but there's also so much more beneath.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, just like form wise, sound
Yeah.
wise. Yeah,
And
it's
if you want to
bonkers.
talk about manipulation of time, Vortex Temporum is bird time, whale time, and what's the third movement? Isn't it people time or something like that?
Whoa.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
That's
where the different speeds of things come from. That's why the beginning is like really fast. That really
oh,
fast
that's
spectral
bird
unfolding.
time.
It's bird time.
That's
Yeah.
like a hummingbird's heart there.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah. Right.
exactly.
It's super dense.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, and
amazing.
the second movement is quarter note equals 40, and it's that really slow thing with the detuned piano. Yeah, it's whale time.
Yeah, this is everyone. We're talking about Gerard
It's
Grisey.
whale time.
Yeah, the piece Vortex Temporum. I talked about Grisey a little bit in my homemade documentary on Simple Answers, my record. If anyone is checking that
Nice.
out, this is Grisey yeah, this is like a
That
big. He's figuring largely into our
that
conversation.
was that was the first piece that I did in my conducting lessons.
Oh, nice.
The whole thing.
That's amazing. Yep. I was thinking, yeah, like the thing with like popular idioms and stuff. It's like it. I'm trying to think of how to say this. We're talking about like music that messes with your perception of time, memory, and like forms that do that, right? So it's like, to me, when I'm listening to popular music, it really doesn't have to do. It doesn't have to do with harmony or anything, actually, but just formally, when you're dealing with a verse chorus thing, that's not messing with your perception of time.
Mm-mm.
And I think when people are like importing, like, or just in a classical music context, you're writing like extended like pieces that aren't just verse chorus, like pieces that are dealing or supposed to be like the intent, like they're long and have many parts,
Right.
but the materials are pop music type stuff with pulse and beats. It's like it's like you're in a situation where you like should be messing with people's perception of time, but you're using materials
It's
that just
it's a
do
mismatch.
not lend themselves to that, or
Yeah,
it's
exactly. It's
like
a mismatch between form and function, right?
that's what. Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is, I mean, this is what I'm talking about. This like people hating their own world. It's like if you hate classical music, why did you get into it in the first place? You know what I mean? It's like just play in just do pop music, right? I mean,
Exactly.
it's like why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I
yeah,
can't solve those, problems for them.
right. Yeah. But then, okay, but here's the thing though. I mean, if you're talking about how your music's not about anything and it's just about pure sound, that is a genre though, right? Or I mean, I don't know if genre is the right word, but it's like a mode.
An approach. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
like
mean, I always say that like I have starting points, and
yeah.
that's where my titles come from. Like Triskelion, like the starting point is both this imagery of this very specific, arcane image,
Mhm.
and the idea of here's something that was that had very specific meaning, and now we don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
that ritualistic element that directly feeds into the piece, which so does the image of the Triskelion. The horn piece that I'm working on right now, the starting place was work visual art by Alberto Buri, this Italian artist.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I was thinking more though that like it being quote unquote about something. Maybe I shouldn't have latched onto that phrase exactly. But the thing of like when you've got people like people's expectations and the context and the psychology and what how people think that they're supposed to listen or whatever, you know, when people go into like a space where it's like this is
Right.
new music, this is contemporary music. Um, yeah, like you were saying before. I mean, there are assumptions about like
Oh yeah, there are a ton of
yeah,
there are
yeah,
so many assumptions that people have before the downbeat.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, you're working within the, you know, it's like we're always working within these expectations.
Yeah.
So there is a certain like well, here's the question. I mean, we're talking about quote unquote classical music. I mean, do you feel like you're dealing with the whole canon? I mean, are you going back to like Monteverdi or Machaut? Are you going back to
Yeah.
chant? I mean, you are. Yeah, like you feel it's
Yeah,
plugged
I
in. It's
view
plugged into the lineage.
yeah, I view myself connected to that. And actually as I've gotten older that's only gotten stronger. I think
Yeah.
like I mean, I definitely, you know, kind of had my musical teenage rebellion, you know, of like, yeah, I'm gonna fuck around with guitar pedals for a while, and I did, and then like that ended up coming back and feeding into this electric guitar piece I did. So I was ahead of my own time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do. I learn as much from the 21st century composers as I do from Beethoven and Bach. Like I score study those things still. I think knowing that where we come from is, you know, crucial to figuring out a way forward. And I think like I understand that some people can't, you know, can't have that connection to the past, and that's fine. I think it's very crucial for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I feel this. I feel this. Yeah, you're not like prescriptive
Right.
about this stuff. But I mean, but we're ragging on the sort of quote unquote pop music with violins. People who are doing that kind of stuff, in your experience, are they folks who are equally as schooled in the tradition of classical music as you and a lot of people, but they just die. They
It
just
really
reject it.
varies. It totally varies. Like, I mean, I don't want to name names, but there's
No,
like
we
a
shouldn't. But
famous American composer, like, you know, who's like a trained violinist and all that, and, you know, has a doctorate, and then it's like the pop music violins thing, and I'm like, I was a trumpet player. Like, I grew up around British style brass band, like actually like Brian Ferneyhough, and then got into orchestral music, then had my teenage rebellion, and then came back to, you know, orchestral, and then actually discovered, you know, what happened after World War II and all of that.
yeah.
So I don't know if the lineage, like, it's like a chosen history, I think, as much as it is like you inherit this because you studied violin, or because you, like, I wasn't a piano major, like,
Right.
and I actually had a lot of anxiety about that. Like, like I was obsessed with the idea of like, oh my god, pianists know everything about music, like they are the descent, you know, it's like that's what Beethoven was, that's what Mozart was, Liszt, all of that. And then it's like, yeah, sure, then look at Saint Saëns, who was a, you know, conservatory trained.
Who is that? Sorry.
Saint Saëns,
Oh, I don't know.
just, you know, early 20th century, whatever, you know, write really boring music,
Okay, yeah.
to be very honest. And then it's like, compare him to Xenakis, who was, you know, doing the math thing
Yeah.
and had way more of an impact on music.
I know, right? Yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's not always, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think there's any correlation to background and compositional like all of that. And then the way that relates, sorry, I definitely went off on a tangent there, but like
No,
the
it's
way
good.
that relates to like the history thing is, I think you make a conscious decision to say, I'm going to look backwards so that I can move forward.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, so there's a sense of a canon. I mean, because I know just what I do see on my little taste of classical Twitter, and I have zero shame. I mean, I'm not above Twitter. Like this is real. This is where discourse happens. Meaning is created here. This is
Yeah,
fine.
for better or worse.
For better or worse, you know, I see a lot of this thing of like, you know, I'm talking about classical musicians ragging on their own stuff the same way metal people do. I mean, there is this a political dimension of talking about, you know, like decolonizing, you know, and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that, and this sort of equating classical music with white supremacy. I mean, obviously, people who are serious intellectuals don't aren't that crude about the conflation, obviously. But
Depends who you ask.
but yeah, I mean, no, but even people who are like really smart and really
Yeah.
serious about stuff do seem to be saying stuff where I don't know, like that there is this need to break from the past, which is interesting because it's like we were correctly talking about how classical music is not hegemonic now,
Right. And in
but
cultural
yet
capital, all of that.
but yet Europe has been dominant. I don't,
Mhm.
globe wise or whatever. So I feel like sometimes maybe people are like combining two things that don't
Yeah.
match, or like, you know what I mean, like
I
drawing these
think I
connections.
think I mean I think there are like very valid questions there. Like I I mean I take issue with people being like, you're a female composer. I'm like, please don't say that. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I don't. Yeah,
I mean, I'm a composer first and foremost, and also, I don't. Well, actually, on that subject, I recently, kind of since concerts started coming back, and we're not, we're not post pandemic by any stretch of the imagination, but with concerts coming back, I started saying I'm not going to any concerts where there are no women on the program, or if
okay.
there's a program of 5 pieces, if there are not 2 women on that program, I'm not going to go because there are so many outstanding composers who are women.
Yeah,
And if you're not programming them, you're telling me something.
right on, right on. I'm not thinking about gender stuff though. I'm more
Yeah,
thinking about, well, not like race exactly, but people kind of make it that way. Just the history. Well, I guess no, the gender shit does apply to the history as well.
right. Because
Um,
women couldn't, I mean, like,
yeah, no, same. But
they didn't have access.
yeah, yeah. But but yeah, I mean, I'm thinking just like just the pieces. I mean, just literally like people. I'm not thinking so much about programming, but more like just what people are studying and absorbing
Yeah.
and using and coming out of. Like when people are
Huge
talking about quote
question.
unquote like like decolonizing like pedagogy or something like
Hmm.
that. Like I mean, where do you like? What do you? How do you feel about just that like word and idea and how that relates to like you being like I'm in the
Right.
canon, this is a continuation,
Yeah.
you're
I
like
think
not
it's
using popular idioms.
I think it's very well meaning, and I think it's also not looking at the issue so broadly. Like, um, basically pop music is all coming out of like Anglo-American traditions anyway. Like pop like K-pop is basically identical to American pop, and there's nothing actually culturally different about it.
Right.
Um
Well, yeah, I mean
I,
harmonically but rhythmically though all this stuff is African, I mean, or African American,
right,
right? So,
yeah.
yeah.
People aren't talking about that.
Right.
And jazz and blues have kind of been eschewed and said this doesn't count. This is now kind of absorbed, so this doesn't count or whatever. um I don't I don't know. At the end of the day, I want my students to be able to read well, like in first year theory, and I want them to be able to see how the pieces of the puzzle fit together. I like to think that things can be taught, pretty stylistically neutral. I actually did look at a Carly Rae Jepsen tune in my theory
Yeah.
class on Wednesday because we were looking at scale degrees and transposing.
Yeah.
So if it helps them, and I've actually had some pretty internal conflict about this for a while, but it's like if it helps them tune into it because it's a tune they've heard before. Never mind that I hadn't heard it before because that's not what I do.
Yeah.
I bring in all the Bach examples and all that. But if it makes them excited to look at it, then okay, great.
Right. Yeah. So right, you like to teach theory in a way, yeah, like stylistically neutral. Um, yeah, that makes sense. But of course, like in your compositional practice, it's like not you're not
Right.
polystylistic.
No.
I'm a
Oh.
little bit just like thinking out loud here. Like
No, I know. I totally know what you mean.
yeah, you know what I'm kind of
Yeah,
like
I know.
just
Yeah, I know what you're getting at. Yeah.
just like music. I mean, because there's other things now. Something which doesn't bother me, but I don't know. Like, I definitely am not against it, but I don't know what to make of it as a. I'm just not. It's like, oh, okay, this is happening now. Is the way like a lot of contemporary music, concerts or grant, funding organizations and stuff. A lot of the time now there'll be like a jazz artist who will be like like programmed, like this is a composer, or like we're,
Oh yeah,
like using the word composer to
yeah,
describe like a jazz artist who's making music that is highly complex, because jazz
right.
is often highly complex and often has lots of composed elements as well as improvisational elements. But it'll be like, this is coming out of the jazz tradition, and it's creative, experimental, forward
Mhm.
looking, complicated, etc. music, and we're going to use the word composer, and
Right.
it's going to be, but it's like
Well,
not
and we're going to use the
classical.
word jazz. Like, what does that really mean
Yeah,
in this context? How does that relate to like Anthony Braxton? Where does the
I
creative
know.
music side of the, that was purposefully made to say this is improvised music that isn't in this kind of, stylistic umbrella.
He just nailed he
Yeah.
just
Oh,
nailed
it's great.
something. He's just, I mean, he was at Wesleyan when I was there, so I spent a lot of time with
That's
him.
awesome.
I spent a lot of time with Braxton. It barely rubbed off on my own music at all, other than just being around genius,
Yeah.
like, helps you just be
Yeah.
psyched or whatever. But yeah, I did a whole like 45-minute video on Braxton, like an
Cool.
overview
I will check that out.
of his work. Well, yeah, he's an example of a guy where he actually, see, that's an example of where like there's so much improvisation embedded in the composition, but there's the understanding that you are improvising in a style, like,
Yes.
like you
Yep.
don't, people don't play blues licks
Right.
when he has a little open circle,
Right.
um but his improvisation, I mean, his style though does have elements of the blues that it isn't just
Yeah.
fully Euro sounding stuff, you know. But I'm even thinking though, yeah, I wasn't even thinking about him, but I was thinking more about people who were playing, like, I don't know. See, this is the thing. Like, what is a genre thing? What does a word mean? But if you've got like swinging ride cymbal and people
That's gonna
improvising,
mean something very specific. That's like
I
a
mean,
stylistic cue, right?
you are, yeah,
Yeah.
like that, So, I mean, I'm interested in, yeah, there's something interesting to me about like people, yeah, having that be like, okay, that's now, I mean, it should be legitimized as like as deep as, as deep as Bach or whatever. It ought to be, but I'm interested in that it's sort of like merging where it's located. Like, it's not just that it's equally valued. It's like,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
like getting, it's like the same institutions. I mean, right? I mean, I'm right. You know what I'm talking about, right? Or
Yeah,
no?
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, and at my institution where I'm teaching, like I have jazz students, and we're actually basically changing our curriculum so that they will have their own basically music theory, because like they do get the question of like, well, why am I studying fugue or whatever? I mean, we're not studying fugue in freshman theory, but the point stands, and sometimes I have a hard time with that, because it's like, I promise you, learning, looking at analyzing a certain example is not going to mean that we're not looking at jazz.
Right, right.
This is
Yeah.
not that different from you. This is not a different universe. Like,
It's
I
definitely
promise,
not a different.
trust me.
It's definitely not a different universe. The stuff with the inversions, though. I mean, treating a first inversion chord as a different thing, as a very different thing than a second inversion chord.
Right.
That's pretty classical. Like in
Yeah.
jazz,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
if it's got a C, a G, and
Because
an E in it,
your voice leading is going to function very differently.
well, there's not going to be. I mean, jazz. Yeah, there's usually not a ton of voice leading being very considered. Maybe some. I don't know, Keith Jarrett stuff. I don't know, but yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to me what well, yeah, like the thing, yeah, I'm interested in like, would you do you okay, here's the thing. I mean, do you have folks who are like your peers, your age, who are making music or composing music that is like like aesthetically in the realm, generally, like you feel an aesthetic kinship with, but they're like not plugged into the tradition, and they claim to
Hmm.
not be, or they're kind of like, you know what I mean? They're like, they don't
Uh-huh.
have
Yeah, I would say no.
the
I would
study.
say
Yeah.
no, because I think if you're aligning yourself aesthetically with some of these things, that means you're looking there.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I feel it. I mean, I think I can tell. I think without interviewing you, I could listen to the music and be
Yeah.
like, she has studied like Monteverdi.
Yeah.
Like I feel like
I
that's
was chatting with another composer friend on Thursday, and and he was talking about Triskelion, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I listen to this and I hear like the high modernism thing, but also past that, and this kind of looking past that."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't think though that someone, as much as I'm like, as much as we're ragging on the sort of the postmodern, like, copying popular styles on the playing funky stuff on the viola, as much as we're ragging on that, I don't think that one has to have mastered the tradition in order to do something awesome with these instruments.
Agreed. Yeah,
Because
agreed.
I remember like seeing some Phil Niblock stuff
Hmm.
that I was just like, this is awesome. It's not. I don't know how much I mean, has he like?
Yeah,
Is
I
he
don't know.
super
I don't
deep on?
know. I
I
don't
mean,
think
there's
so.
yeah. Sometimes there'll be things like that where it doesn't sound like they're plugged into the tradition. Like
Right.
it has a certain unrooted quality, but it's using the instruments and it's deep. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, but yeah, well, this is cool that you're like classical music. It's yeah. So
Classical music.
you would call what you do classical music. You would final end of the day, you put a
Yeah.
capital C on it.
I would say contemporary classical slash. I mean, I don't like when people do the this is the ironic thing, not to keep like ragging on irony, but I'm going to keep ragging on irony when people are like capital M music. Like
Right, like
and use that as a way to say, oh, this is incorporating, or I am aware of these stereotypes, these tropes of contemporary, like that. I think that is so surface. It's so surface level. So I mean, I do gravitate towards new music. Like I mean, my little concert thing, proto ensemble, is called Rhythm is Image New Music Initiative. So I am, taking ownership of new music because I am always looking to do something new. But
yeah,
yes, it is classical.
yeah, right on. Yeah, plug that a little better.
Oh yeah,
Rhythm is Image New
yes,
Music
yeah, it
Initiative
is.
is
Yeah, it's a somewhere halfway between a concert series and an ensemble. Basically, whoever I can rope into playing on my concerts. We do a kind of wide variety. Last concert was a new solo violin piece of mine, a clarinet solo by Enno Popa called Holtz, played by badass clarinetist friend of mine Max Reese. A Rebecca Saunders solo violin piece.
nice.
Yeah, Hotch, beautiful piece. Griset's solo pour deux, in which a clarinet goes in and out of the bell of the trombone. Yes, it is as suggestive as it sounds.
I'm sure.
And you get absolutely crazy changes to the timbre and the microtonality. And that piece, it's that is a piece that I wish I wrote, honestly, every time I listen to it. And then
That's a fun feeling.
yeah, it's unbelievable. And then I did Alvin Lucier's "I Am Sitting in a Room," which
Classic,
yeah,
of course, classic. He was also at Wesleyan when I was there.
I was gonna ask. I read his
Yeah, yeah.
collection of lectures and the guest lectures from Wesleyan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He used to sign my drop ad slips for and I didn't when I got there, I didn't know who I was dealing with, I was just like, "Oh yeah, Lucier, man, interesting stuff." Braxton I knew was like, this like
Yeah.
heavyweight and stuff, but then over time I realized yeah, Lucier, there's so many different ways to be deep, right? I mean,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But see, but okay, so that's an example of someone though. I mean, all that kind of stuff. I mean, that like is he classical music at that point?
I would say that. I mean, I think he's more in the vein of that capital E experimental.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, that's
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
this. That's another
I
capital
think
letter.
that
Yeah,
I really think that's kind of the divide. And I mean, I don't even want to say divide, because like I want to reach across that like I love John
yeah. A
Cage.
distinction though, right?
Yeah,
Not a
that's
division, but
perfect.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if we can look at Cage as like, the father of capital E experimentalism, that means something very specific, especially in the American context.
Yes. Okay, I feel this.
Yeah.
Right, because he was super trained. Did he study with Boulanger or I
He studied
forget.
with Schoenberg,
He studied with
which is crazy.
that is so like OG, like that's yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like so right. So I mean he's like that's about as plugged into the tradition as you
Yeah.
get, but his music does not in any way
Totally. Yeah.
sound or function in a way where you would need
Yeah.
to have studied that at all.
And well, and my understanding is that his lessons with Schoenberg were all studying Bach, because Schoenberg did not teach his students how to do what he was doing.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's pretty based.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I what was I gonna say? Yeah, one of the things Lucier, like when he recently passed, I was kind of like looking back.
Mhm.
I was like, man, like it's like such a what an ingrate. I didn't even realize how good I had it. But I was like, but then I was thinking about just one of the things that's so amusing but deep. It like. And I don't even think true exactly, but sort of he's making a point. He was just like, I don't really have a lot of musical talent. He's like, I'm not really good at music. I'm not really a composer, which I'm sure isn't true, but
Yeah.
like he,
I
he
mean,
had,
it manifests very differently, right?
yeah, no, for sure. But I mean, he had this thing. I mean, he called himself a composer, obviously, but like
Yeah.
his whole deal was like, he's like, I've shut out. He's just like, I'm willing to just be like, I don't do this. Like, I
Right.
do not do melody. I don't even claim that I could.
Right.
That's not happening. Although harmonically, that piano and sine wave thing is actually pretty
Oh, that piece is
harmonic.
great.
It's so sick.
I
That
love
might
that
be my
piece.
favorite. Yeah. And that with that, he kind of betrays the fact that yes, actually, you do know how to write cool, like harmonic
Yeah.
things. But I don't know. I thought, but yeah, he seemed like very much making a statement. Capital E, experimental. Like
Yeah.
that's the tradition. That's like
Yeah.
so not my vibe though. I mean, it's like so deep, but it's like I just am so not.
It's
Like
not at all how I write. Like I honestly, like I tell people, I'm very upfront. I'm like, yeah, I'm not an instrumental performer. Like I don't perform on trumpet at all. It's not what I'm about at all. And I program music that I'm interested in, and that includes music that is nothing like what I do.
yeah,
Or I
yeah,
mean, what I write, and then I get up and I sit there and I do the Lucier, and it's a totally different experience.
yeah, yeah. Well, okay, but so then capital E, experimental music. We're saying there's a distinction, but it's compatible enough with quote unquote classical music that
Hmm.
you would put a Lucier thing
Yeah.
on a concert, whereas you would not put, I don't know, a pop singer. I mean, this seems obvious maybe,
Yeah.
but it's like not necessarily
I
obvious.
think I like how you put that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I think some people, like, I know, I know a lot of people that I talked to at that concert were like, I don't get why that piece, because it's, the first four pieces were like, here's playing an instrument. And then I am sitting in a room,
yeah. So people,
and
yeah, they experienced it as quite different, but
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Because to me, that's not that different. I'm trying to think. Well, okay,
I don't
so
think it's that different.
what about a Braxton? I hope I'm not like putting you on the spot or grilling. I'm just really interested in like what like so on a concert, would it
Yeah.
feel? I'm not asking what you think is good or valid or more or
Yeah.
less, but more just like what you would program.
Yeah.
Like
That's
a
interesting.
Braxton piece. Well, he always writes for well, yeah, no, like a Braxton piece. I mean, would that?
I think it would depend who I have playing, because I would not want to ask people who are not comfortable like I hated improvising
Mm,
always, whether it was in a jazz or in an experimental context. I was like, no, this is like not what I'm about.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I would never, the thing actually that made me kind of have an aha moment was actually at Sick Puppy at the Summer Institute for Contemporary Performance Practice last summer. I went to an open improv hour. This is over Zoom, and we did some of Stockhausen's Auf dem Sieventag, and I played an automaton, which is sitting up there, and it's here, this thing, and
What is
oh, the
that?
batteries. Oh, wait. Oh, it's on. It works. Yes, it works like a make note.
That's cool. Wait, it's a
Yeah.
toy or what is it?
Oh
No.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a Japanese toy,
Yeah.
as the Japanese do very well.
That actually sounds cool though. That like sounds that yeah. If
Yeah.
I weren't looking at it and I were just hearing it, I would
Oh yeah.
be
Oh yeah.
very serious. I'd have a very serious face on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just like the idea of like someone getting up there and like being very serious and then like playing this thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So I improvise, we were doing these Stockhausen text scores.
Oh, that's what that
And
is. Yeah, because I'm a fan, but I didn't
yeah, they're
I didn't
like,
know that particular piece. Yeah.
yeah, there are a bunch of text scores, and they're like little poems. It's like find the rhythm of the universe,
Yeah.
change it, then go back, and it's like, wow. I mean, and part of it's like I just sat listening to composers talk for like 9 hours, like 9 hours. I'm gonna go play automaton in a Zoom, in a Zoom with this like outstanding cellist, and it was like actually like deeply profound.
Yeah.
And I had this moment, and I was like, huh, I think I get this.
So you were saying you really disliked improvising until
Yeah,
Stockhausen
yeah.
brought you into the that may be the
Stockhausen
classical
and this.
that's the classical person in you for sure, because it's
Oh
just
yeah,
like like the text score is just, I mean, it's kind of just like hippie, like, right? I mean, sort of
yeah.
like the
And
little
I like words. Like I really
the,
like words.
yeah. Just having it, just being prompted by the writing and just
Hmm.
the presence of Stockhausen in a way.
Yeah.
Um, no, that's deep. That's
My
cool.
other favorite misunderstood weirdo.
Oh God, is he misunderstood? I mean, just
Yeah, I mean, like his 9/11 comments are like really bad. Like I think like most people my age, I think know him from that, and it's like if that's your first impression of him,
that sucks.
I
Yeah.
I get it that you don't want to engage any further because it's like pretty bad. But
I think as a New Yorker, I can give him a pass. And
I
well,
shouldn't
also,
laugh.
well, see, but you see though, people like, it's all who says it, right? Because if
Yeah,
if some stand-up comic said that, no
right.
one would care, because
No
they're
one
like,
would care because
his
it's just
job
it's
is to
just this
say,
weird German composer.
right.
I mean, yeah, and like yeah. So actually, Rhythm is Image started because in undergrad, I this is like insane, but I got obsessed with wanting to do microphony.
Yeah. That's cool.
And
That's a
yeah,
weird piece.
I
Yeah.
did actually. Evelyn, who is listening, if she's still here, was in that performance as well, and so that was like the starting point.
Yeah.
So yeah, Stockhausen's been responsible for a lot on my journey.
Yeah, I mean, that was some of the first really complex, like, post-war stuff I
Yeah,
heard was Stockhausen, the eighth piano piece,
oh,
from Braxton. Just like, he hit me to that. He was like, "This is thing one that you need
awesome.
to check out." I was
Yeah,
like, "Yeah, okay,
those
this is a
pieces are
place."
great.
Yeah,
I love
yeah,
mantra. I listen to mantra like once a
yeah.
month. Like literally, like that's like my go-to. If I'm engraving a score, I put on mantra.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Um, Word. Let's see. We see these streams can go on for a trillion hours, and I
Yeah,
don't
how has
know.
it been 2 hours already?
Yeah, to me that's all good. I don't know how you like to roll on your Saturdays, but have we?
This might be a good stopping point.
Yeah, I think we've reached a cadence, as it were. Yeah. Well, I would. Well, actually, this would normally be the cadence time. Is normally when I would go in the comments and answer questions, but we're not really getting much
I'm digging the commentary though.
question. Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, it's good. We got a good little hang going. Well, Hannah, thank you so much
Thank
for
you for
coming
having me.
on. It was
Thanks for having me,
yeah,
Johnny. This was a blast.
yeah, it was an absolute blast for me too. It's cool because some things I had a feeling, I had a sense of what you might say. Other things I was like, okay, yeah, no shit, excellent, yeah,
I
like,
contain multitudes.
yeah. No, we all do. It's good. Yeah, you want to keep people guessing. If
Absolutely.
people can tell where you're at immediately, it's like it's not as mysterious. You should end with a plug, though. Any specific events coming up, performances of your music, Rhythm is Image.
Rhythm is Image is not happening until the spring. I will have several recordings coming. My horn piece is premiering early December, and I will have a recording up from that.
Nice.
If you
Where's
want
that being premiered?
Tallahassee, Florida.
Oh, tight. Okay.
Yeah, Florida State. If you want to drop my SoundCloud, that would be great.
Okay.
And you can read my stunning and amazing hot takes on Twitter at composingHAB21.
Nice. Yeah. How about I will? I'm gonna copy. I'm gonna copy and paste. Oh, did I just? Whatever. I'll paste it in the comments. Actually, just
Really
like in a sec. Before I log off. Wonderful. Okay.
awesome.
Well, yeah, have an awesome rest of your weekend, and I'll
Thank you.
send
You
you
too.
I'll send you the link when this is up. These get recorded
Okay.
and they get put up as a podcast in just audio
True.
form. I don't edit or anything though. I just do the whole audio.
Wow.
So, cool. All right. Well, I will see you online.
Yeah. See you. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Yeah.
Thanks for having
Thanks for
me.
tuning in, y'all.
All
Bye,
right.
Hannah.
Bye.
there you have it, people. You see how deep it gets? See how deep it gets on the live stream? Here, yeah, I'm gonna drop Hannah's SoundCloud in here, so that people can get down with her whole body of work. No, this is not her whole body of work. This is just like a few choice cuts. But oh, what am I doing? It'll be in the it'll be in the bio, the description for the thing, obviously, for the video. Yeah. So, yo, the next couple live streams, you're gonna be. I've got one that's gonna surprise you. I've got one coming up. Not because the people are so famous, but that you're gonna be like, okay, like how, like what? It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. All right, everybody. Thank you, and stay tuned for more. I'm also doing. By the way, we're getting. I'm going way deeper on just this channel in general. We're going to be doing live streams every single week and more videos. I'm about to launch a Patreon soon. It's about to get pro. It's about to get very pro. Because I want to do this for a living. You know what I mean? Let's just enough is enough with teaching. I like teaching guitar, but this, I would rather be doing this, honestly. So yeah, I'm going to see how hard we can go with this. All right. Bye, y'all.